Hello, beautiful people. What's good? I'm back. And I decided that what I'm going to start doing, maybe every week or whenever, I feel that I have more information, I'm going to start making a Kundalini Awakening update video. And that's because throughout this process, I have been experiencing new things, new symptoms, figuring things out. So I feel like if I make these updates, that it'll help some people to kind of like make a comparison or even give you some answers. Sometimes a person could just say one or two things and then it just like, oh my goodness, like it answers a question for you. I decided that I'm going to do that from now on as I'm going through this awakening. I feel like I've been guided by my angels to do this for whatever reason, so I'm just trying to follow what I'm led to do. So first of all, throughout this whole awakening, throughout this whole spiritual awakening, Kundalini awakening, I have done a lot of research. I have read so many things, watched so many videos, looked at all the different lists of all these type of symptoms that you have going through this awakening. And one of the symptoms I recall reading about is how they talk about how memories will come back to you. You will remember things that you may have totally forgotten about that happened a very long time ago, and you just like certain memories you just have. I've also read that this Kundalini energy is in you even as a child. You have this Kundalini energy and things happen that you probably don't remember as a kid. Now, I was watching a video from Carolyn Kundalini. She's a YouTuber. And I was watching one of her videos and it like triggered a whole memory for me. It was just so amazing. I couldn't stop thinking about it all that day that it happened. It was like, I'd say maybe about 2 or so weeks ago. I was watching one of her videos and she talked about how one of the symptoms were having vivid dreams. And for me, I feel like I do have vivid dreams, but they seem kind of stupid to me. Like they don't even make sense. I don't understand them. So I'm just like, the dreams doesn't mean anything to me. But then she said something about you may dream about snakes and a snake trying to bite you. And then the moment she said that, it was just like a flash. Like this whole memory came back to me and it was just amazing. All day long, I was just like, oh my God, how did I remember that? So when I was probably about 7 years old, no more than 8, 6, 7 maybe, and the reason why I know that was my age is because I know where we were living at the time that I had this dream. We were living in these apartments called the Matchbox in Carol City in Miami, and those apartments don't even exist anymore, but we were living there, and I know how old we were when we were living there, or how old I was when we were living there, so that's how I remember my age. So I dreamt when I was about 7 years old, like I'm saying somewhere between 6 and 8, but I believe somewhere around 7. I had a dream. We were living in these apartments. There was upstairs and downstairs inside the apartment. I dreamt that a snake was chasing me. So I'm running from the snake in the house. The snake's in the house, and I'm running from the snake. I run upstairs. The snake chased me upstairs. And so I ran to my room, and I went to close the door, and the snake pushed the door, and me and the snake were fighting. And I'm like trying to push the door and keep him out, and he's trying to get in. And then the snake shot from underneath the door. And I remember waking up like how people wake up in movies when they have nightmares that I always thought was so fake, how people wake up like that. But I actually woke up like that at that age. I was sleeping and I woke up like, ah, and screamed and everything. So I remember when I woke up, I'm in the bed and I realized I'm dreaming, or I had a dream. So I laid down because I heard my little brother coming. I could hear him running across the hall. Their room was on the other side. So I lay down and I kind of like lift the blanket over my head kind of like and peek from around the blanket. And I remember seeing him run up to the door, and then he like looked in the room, and I guess since he seen that I was laying down, he just walked away. He thought I was sleeping. But that whole memory came back so clear. It was just amazing to me. How could I remember that? How did I forget that? Like, it was just like, it was wild. And it blew my mind all day. I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I had actually called my sister to ask her if she remembers me telling her about this dream when I was a kid about this snake. And she was like, no, I don't really remember that. But One thing she remembered was something that she used to, or one thing she's told me is something that she used to mention over the years that I totally forgot, which is another symptom of a Kundalini awakening, or one of the symptoms. One time I was hallucinating as a kid, as a child, in the same apartments where we were living. I woke up and we thought that it was because I had a fever or something. So I woke up and I jumped up on the bed and I was screaming and pointing in the corner like it's a snake or something's in the corner, and I'm like screaming, and she's like, "What are you talking about? There's nothing in the corner. What are you?" So she ran down and got my big brother, my dad, or whoever, for them to come up and find out what's going on with me. So they came up, and by this time, when they came upstairs, I had already come to. I was no longer hallucinating. So they come up, and they're like, "What's wrong with you, Nadia?" And I'm like, "Nothing." And she's like, "What, you wasn't just screaming and pointing at a snake in the corner?" And I'm like, "No." Like, "Yes, you was." And I'm like, so they probably thought she was crazy. But she has mentioned that over the years, and I totally didn't even think about it. Like I said, we always thought that maybe that happened because I was sick and I had a fever. But that is also one of the symptoms of a Kundalini awakening: hallucinations and dreaming about snakes. So that was pretty interesting. Now, my sister has had certain interesting things happen to her. She's had the sleep paralysis where she woke up and felt like somebody was pushing her down, and her body couldn't move. And I've never experienced that. It's sounds kind of scary. But she also has had psychic dreams. Like, she'll dream about something and it actually has come true. Like, her dreams have actually come true. So, that's pretty interesting. And so now this leads me to my big brother. So last week my brother came in town. He came in town for his birthday. He's from Indiana, or he lives in Indiana. He's not from Indiana, but he lives there, and he came and spent a night or two at our house before going to Miami to hang out for his birthday. So he came to our house, and it was great. We reminisced, talked. I love like talking to my family and reminiscing. It's such a great time and talking about a lot of things, and especially since my mom passed away when I was 2. And so my brother was 12 at the time. And then there's a brother that's 15 who was older than him. My sister was 5. So, they have a little bit more memories than I do. I don't remember my mom at all. So I love talking to him about that stuff, and just about the reminiscing, the things he used to do when he was a kid, and my mom, and all these stories and stuff. And we were talking. We had a great night. And I was actually very hesitant about telling him about these Kundalini symptoms and stuff that I've been experiencing. I was a little hesitant about telling him that, but I decided I'm gonna do it anyway. So we were talking, and I told him what has been happening with me and talking about these symptoms. And believe it or not, my brother has had Kundalini awakening symptoms. He says when he goes to bed at night sometimes and he closes his eyes, he sees flashes sometimes. And also that he has these involuntary like twitches or jerks movements that happen sometimes. And it's like he tries to hope that nobody's seen it when it happened. And I was just like, oh my God, how could this be that my family, like this is in the family type of thing? It's just weird. It's really interesting. So that same day that my brother had came there, that night we were talking, we had a great night. I went to bed that night, and he was sleeping in the living room. Me and my hubby's in the bed. The kids are in their room or whatever. And so I'm sleeping in the bed with my hubby, and we decided we're not going to work the next day. I actually been taking a lot of days off of work after going through this whole awakening. But he was staying home that next day, but he didn't cut off his alarm, and so it kept going off at like 5 in the morning. It just kept waking us up. And he just was hitting snooze, and I had to tell him, hey, turn it off because I'm not going back to sleep. It's just keeping me up. So he ended up turning off the alarm, and then I decided, let me turn over on my stomach and like finally go to sleep. So I turn over, and I'm laying there relaxing, and I'm staring at the wall. So I'm laying there staring at the wall, just looking, and I'm thinking, because my mind is always going. So I'm staring at the wall, and I believe that I must have gone into unconsciousness or something, because suddenly I feel like I am staring at a dark sky and white clouds. So I'm laying there and I'm looking at a dark sky and white clouds, just staring. And then I must have come back into consciousness, because I now realize that I'm in my bed and I'm in the house. So how could I be looking at a dark sky and white clouds? And then what freaked me out is that I realized that my eyes were open. Like when I felt that my eyes were open and all I could see was a dark sky and white clouds, it totally scared me. I tucked my head and closed my eyes. It just freaked me out. and I'm just laying there. And when I tuck my head and close my eyes, I start feeling the buzzing and the vibrating feeling going on. And I'm laying there and I actually start to panic because I'm like, this can't happen right now. I can't have this like full-blown Kundalini awakening happen right now. You know, my hubby's laying next to me. I hear him breathing. My brother's here. This is gonna like be crazy. I have to get up and take the kids to school in a minute. Like, oh my goodness, I'm panicking. And so I open my eyes and I'm like looking around the room, like trying to come to and I'd figure out what's going on here. And the buzzing and vibrating, it lasted for a little while and then it started slowing down. And even when it stopped, it's almost like I felt these after effects of it. I could still feel this vibrating in my body. And what's so strange to me is with the other vision I had, that other time when I was sleeping and I wasn't sleeping, I closed my eyes to relax. And as I started to doze, I had a vision of this little yellow butterfly, and then I heard a yell, and I'm up. I know I'm awake at this time. And I heard this like yell that sounded like it was far away, and then I start feeling the buzzing and vibrating. So it's almost like every time I have a vision or something like that happens, that's when I start feeling this energy vibrating, going through the body, which is pretty interesting. I'll figure it out one day, I guess. But that was, like I said, that day, after that dark sky vision, like it kind of was a kind of like an off day for me. I felt a little down. I just didn't feel that great that day. I felt a little emotional because I just felt like I don't want to tell my brother. I don't want to tell my hubby. Like I said, I have to feel like I have to go through some of this alone. I can't keep like overwhelming them with all of this stuff that I'm experiencing. I'm trying to handle some of it, and I tell them some things. I talk to him about some things, but I just don't want to just like every single time something happens, keep like talking to him and telling him stuff and making him feel like, what do you want me to do, So I just, try to go through that on my own. But that was kind of like, I got a little teary that day. It was just like, this is a lot, Now, aside from that, I got past it. As days go by, you get better. You just move past it and you get over it. I decided I'm gonna go back to work because I've been taking a lot of days off. So I went back. Thursday was my first day back in a while. So I went to work, and there's a new coworker at work. And me and her, we're chatting in the back. I'm very friendly. I'm cool with everybody. So we're in the back talking about massage and how tough it is on the body, and we're just talking and chatting and laughing and joking. And I don't know what I said. I may have said something or I made a facial expression or something that made her laugh. And she randomly said, "You should have a YouTube channel." And I'm like, whoa, like I did make a YouTube channel. She's like, what? And we're like laughing about that. And then she asked me, so what's it about? What you talking about on there? And I said, well, skeptical to talk about it, But I'm like, well, it's about spiritual awakening. And I'm, going through something called a Kundalini awakening. And she's like, amazingly, this woman has had multiple Kundalini awakenings. That is, to me, was just like amazing. She, as a matter of fact, just came from some kind of ayahuasca retreat that she just went to, which I'm listen, all of you who do that, I think you guys are very brave, right? I think you're very brave for this ayahuasca and this stuff with all these visions. I think you're very brave, and I have a lot of respect for you. Me, I think I'm already like a scaredy cat or something. I don't even like watching scary movies. I don't like watching bloody demon movies. I don't like stuff like that. So I don't even want to do anything to heighten this stuff that I'm experiencing already. So like I said, you guys who do that, listen, I have a lot of respect for you. You guys are very bold, very awake people, but I'm too scared to try it. But that whole thing just really showed me how the universe really will just talk to you through other people, and it's just amazing. I've been skeptical about making these videos on YouTube, and I just feel like I'm not in a position to really share or really help people or teach people because I'm still learning myself. But for her to just say that to me while I've been thinking and skeptical about these videos, for her to just randomly say, you should have a YouTube channel, that was just like, oh my goodness, like, wow. Universe, you are something else. As well as her actually having experienced Kundalini awakenings. It was amazing to me. So she and I was chit-chatting and talking about sharing our Kundalini awakening experience. I was telling her about when I was 19 and how the tingle went up the spine, and it just like, I didn't know what it was, and I was afraid. And she was telling me, and she was saying to me that, yeah, that was your first spontaneous Kundalini awakening. And when I thought about it, I never looked at that as an awakening. I just thought it was just a Kundalini symptom, like the energy. I didn't feel like it was an awakening that happened, because that used to happen for years. Like maybe 5 times throughout the year, this would happen and keep me up all night, to the point where I was just like, I got used to it. I wasn't scared anymore, and I'd just go sit down and watch TV like, okay, I'm not going to bed tonight, I just got used to it. But when I thought about it, like I said, talking to this woman made me think. That's why I said the universe will sometimes just guide you to certain people, and just talking to them sometimes make you answer your own questions and figure out things on your own. Like they say, the answer is within us all the time. So I'm thinking about at 19 when this happened, and I do remember that I did make some changes after that happened. I start to realize that, oh my goodness, I did do some different things at that time. So maybe that was an awakening. Now I'm realizing that we do have multiple Kundalini awakenings. Very interesting. I actually always thought that, it was just a Kundalini awakening, or maybe some of us have multiple ones, and maybe some of us just have this massive awakening and everything changes in our life and we just do everything different. So at that time, since I don't remember anything drastic, all I remember is the tingle going up my spine. Now when I think about it, I remember the things that I was doing around that time. So at this time, at 19, I was modeling for this company, and it was like a little small agency, and there was this guy, the owner, who I actually was really cool with, and we talked to me about a lot of guy stuff and telling me what kind of guys I should date and how he wants to hook me up with football players and stuff like that. And that was just not the girl I was. And he used to always try to tell me how I should be, how I should only date guys that have this and this, that, and that, and the other. And I was never that girl. But he used to do it all the time, and it used to annoy me. We used to like debate about that. And one time I went out on this date or whatever, and I think when I was talking to him like the next day, I was telling him about the date, and then he started telling me how, oh, you're not supposed to be going out with this type of guy and blah, 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 this and that. And he was really annoying me. And he also told me about he has this spiritual advisor that he goes to, who tells him about all the talent and all of the potential that all of the models have, and how she said something about me. And I don't remember exactly what he said that she said, but I do remember being really annoyed with him and saying, F you and your spiritual advisor. I remember doing that. And that night is when this Kundalini awakening happened. I went to bed that night, and the tingle went up my spine, and it happened all night. So therefore, I thought that this spiritual advisor must have been a voodoo lady, and he must have took a strand of my hair and gave it to the lady. Like, I just started thinking all kind of stuff, because at this age, and when you don't know what's going on, you have to try to find some kind of answers. So that's what I thought was going on at this time in my life. But I do remember shortly after that doing different things, leaving that, like cutting him off and not working for this company anymore. And I even remember him telling me I had a contract, and I was like, I don't care. And I left and actually went to California and lived with my cousin. Like, something in me just like I wanted to do something different. And I guess when I thought about it at the time, it was just like, oh, I just want to go and try out different modeling agencies, or I want to, but that was probably an awakening, that happened at that time. And my coworker, she was telling me that maybe the Kundalini energy was trying to protect me or get me away from certain people. And that probably was the whole, that why that happened, to like make me make some changes in my life. So it all makes sense, but it's like, you just never know, and, this just really makes me realize, God, you loud. So this really just makes me realize that we truly do have all of the answers ourselves. Like, the answers are really, the universe will give it to us. So we don't always have to take everything that we're getting and listening to. I believe that I have kind of like shaken my own self up. When I start feeling the vibrating, I'm starting to think that what's going to happen is the stuff that I read, the stuff that I watch and hear people say. They say things like, oh, this whole explosion happened and bursted out of their head and their body was on fire. And people tell you all this stuff, and you start to think that that is how it's going to happen for you. But believe it or not, it may not happen at all, ever like that. Maybe you'll have multiple awakenings that are just going to be subtle as time goes by, and each one that we have takes us closer to enlightenment. So while we're thinking that this awakening has to happen this way and I'm going through this and this big thing is going to happen, it's probably not going to be like that at all for some of us. And I'm really starting to realize that. So what I think we have to do is stop taking everything that we hear from people like that is the way it's going to be. Take bits and pieces from here and there and put things together on your own. Take bits and pieces. Don't feel like everything that somebody says is the way it's going to go, you know? I realize that that is what's been happening. I've been taking too much information. It's an information overload type thing. Like I'm just taking too much information, thinking that this is going to tell me and give me the answers to what's going to happen and what I'm going to go through. And I really don't think that's the case. There's so many different people out here talking about this Kundalini awakening, and a lot of them are saying things like, oh, this is not true, and that is not true, and this can't happen, and it doesn't happen this way, and you can't stop this, and this, and that. How do you know what the awakening is like for someone else? How do you know? The only thing you know is what you have experienced and what's going on with you. You can't say that what somebody says happened with them is not true, you know? So I'm just starting to realize that we have to find these answers ourselves. And as long as we keep in alignment with the universe, it's going to give us answers. It's going to tell us certain things, show us certain things through other people, through things that just randomly happen. And then you start figuring it out and you know, coming to a conclusion for what is actually going on in your life and what you're actually experiencing. So that's the end of that. That's pretty much all I have to say. I hope that this video is, hope it reaches somebody, you know, opens your eyes, gives you a little bit of something that's going to help you along the way, as I've been, you know, helped by listening to so many people and reading so many things. And thank you for watching. Please like and share and subscribe and all that good stuff. And I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. Bye.